I want to know what the hell is going on.
Let's do our clap. 3, 2, 1.
Perfect.
I almost clapped when you said let's do our clap because my brain is that fried this morning.
Let's do our clap. Everybody just starts clapping randomly. This doesn't help.
Clapping for the clap.
Yay, chlamydia.
Yes, that was Kelly clapping for chlamydia.
Anyway, so welcome to Screen Share and Chill. My name is Kelly.
I'm Keith, and I don't know him.
I'm Jamie, and I certainly don't know him.
Hey, sometimes I don't know myself.
That sounds like a song.
And that's something we all need to focus on, is learning who we are.
Self-discovery.
Not that kind of self-discovery, though.
Dirty.
Just like the titular character of the program we're watching today.
Titular.
Again, dirty.
Titular. Conan the Barbarian. Yay, I'm so happy we're doing Conan finally. I've been debating and teasing this movie since we started the pod over a year ago. And we are finally reviewing one of my favorite fantasy movies from the 80s, Conan the fucking Barbarian.
Let me tell you of the days of high adventure.
It starts off right with some just a little bit of narration. It was Lord of the Rings before Lord of the Rings was, you know? I mean, that's where Peter Jackson got the idea for the opening monologue, was from Conan, I'm sure.
We have to discuss, though, that it starts off with Caitlyn Jenner talking to Linda Hamilton and telling her this story.
That was, when you said that while we were watching, I lost my mind, because it literally, looked like both of those people. As soon as you said it, it clicked in my brain.
Uh-huh.
And
who were you talking about?
Conan's dad is Caitlyn Jenner, and Conan as a child is Linda Hamilton.
Absolutely.
Oh, okay. I will have to go back and look at it again, because I heard you say that, and then I heard Keith laughing his ass off, and there was part of me that was like, God damn it, this is the beginning monologue. Shut up and let's watch this. And there was the other part of me that was like, I didn't get the joke.
Kelly, before we discuss the good, before you give any background information, why don't you go ahead and pull that up right now and take a look, just for the context.
Oh, I can mentally see it. I've seen this movie enough that I see what you're saying now. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
He was just so involved in his movie that he couldn't get it at the time.
Yeah.
I thought you were saying that one person was a mashup between Caitlyn Jenner and Linda Hamilton.
No.
And I was thinking, I don't see it. Conan, as the young actor for Conan, kind of looks like Linda Hamilton, but I don't see Caitlyn Jenner in that phase too. Now I get it that one was one and one was the other.
Yeah,
that makes more sense. Yeah, so we're doing Conan the Barbarian. Had you both seen this before? What's your history with Conan in general, or just this movie?
I grew up watching this with my dad, so I'm a long time Conan fan.
I have never seen it, and I am sad to say that I have now.
Is this gonna turn into an in defense of? Is that what's happening?
Oh my God! I was ready for an in defense of. Back when Katie was on the show, I was ready to do an in defense of Conan the Barbarian with her attacking it at every turn. But just like a good Conan fan, I would have crushed my enemies. I remember back when I was younger, my mom was an accountant, and at one point she would go into different firms, and she would do some accounting on a Saturday afternoon to help out a friend running a business or something like that. And so there were times where I would be at these random business offices at 2 p.m. on a Saturday, and one of these Saturdays my mom had bought me a couple of random fantasy books because she knew I liked fantasy. One of them was by Robert Howard, and it was something like Aram and the Frost Giant's Daughter, or something like that. And I read the story, and I was mesmerized with these characters, and it was on a snowy day that I was reading it, and the story took place in snow. I thought it was fucking incredible. And then I found out later that Aram, I think is what the character's name was what was Conan was called before he was called Conan.
Yeah, he has
And
a few
this was
different
like
names.
an early, this was like a proto Conan story, and I was like, well, no fucking wonder. So I guess in some way I've been reading Conan stories and watching Conan movies most of my life, and I don't know. I think he's a fun character. He's not perfect by any means. He's kind of a dumbass. He's misogynistic in a lot of ways. The stories are too, but like, yeah.
Lots of comic books of Conan as well. Was a very, very popular character. And when was his time when the books and comics was out? Is that like 70s? Is that a 70s property?
No, I think it was before that. Let's look at Conan.
Oh, it looks like it started in
40s?
Yeah, in the late 30s.
I was thinking
40s.
It was like the 40s, yeah.
The Marvel Comics licensed it in 70s, and that's when it like got like popular with kids.
Yeah, the first book, Conan of Samaria, Volume 1, was 1932.
Wow.
So, yeah, that's pretty impressive. And maybe that shows why there were some very inherently misogynistic... Like, if we look at this media through the lens of today, the women are very one-dimensional. They're there for sexual titillation and not much else. You know, like, it's not woke at all. But...
It's also fucking barbarians, so like...
Yeah, it's in the name. They call him a barbarian. It would be like having a movie called Johnny the Moron, and then Johnny does something stupid, and everybody going, what the fuck is wrong with this guy? And we'd be like, it's in the fucking title. It's Johnny the Moron. So
yeah. I mean, we'll talk.
So-
We will talk
Excuses.
about that. No. But we will talk about it. I'm sure. I have one of those instances in both the good column and the bad column, so I will explain that later as we go.
Yeah, and much like if this turned into a bit of a defense of, my defense would be similar to when I did Lady Hawk, that like, you can't yuck my yum on this. There's no way. And even if you were like, this thing that happens was really boring, I'd be like, cool, man. Like, I had a great... Hey, if you don't want it, can I have yours? I'll take all of your helping of Conan, and I'll have it for myself, because that's fine by me. But, yeah, so we're going to stick with the good, bad, and the ugly, like we have done before. We're gonna break this down into what the movie did good, what the movie did bad, and what were the really super ugly parts. So, as we did last time, we're going to start with good. Maybe at some point we'll start with one of the others, but I like kind of starting off with the good. Let's tell us some good things about the movie first.
Like I already said, just the way it starts, let me tell you of the days of high adventure. That's a great mood setter right there, right off the bat.
Yeah, and with the soundtrack that accompanies it, and you know the timing of it all, let me tell you of the days of high adventure, and then the soundtrack bumps in right afterwards with that heavy drum beat that we all know from Conan. That's now synonymous with Conan when you hear it. But
I liked that they used Rottweilers as the attack dogs because that's very historically accurate. Rottweilers are, weirdly enough, one of the oldest breeds around and are actually traced back to the original Roman Mastiffs. So that was good.
I wonder how many people had a fear of dogs exacerbated because of this movie. Because I remember in my friend circles, and even when I show this movie to people, that's one of those scenes where people kind of turn away from the screen. It's the closest to gore that we get early on. And even like we see heads chopping off and people don't turn away from the screen going, oh, I can't watch this. But the dogs mauling the man on the ground, that freaks people out. And I get it. It's kind of visceral, like he's helpless and they're just tearing at him and
Pretty good production value on like the armors look good, most of the sets look good. Right off the bat, we're looking pretty good for a movie made in 1982. The sets and the armor, even though most of it takes place outside, you know, they put their time in scouting, building the sets they needed to.
I agree. The sets are really amazing.
The swords themselves, there were two swords that they spent a lot of money on, and I think they called them the antiquated sword, or what is it? The ancient sword and the master's sword were the two swords. The master's sword was the sword that Conan's dad is building at the beginning, and Thulsa Doom takes and he chops off his mom's head with that one.
That's the one that breaks, right? Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. That's called the master's sword, according to like the script and the production notes. The other one, the ancient sword, is the one that Conan finds in that little cave that he falls into. That he bangs it on a rock, and all the mineralization falls away. away and it's shiny and sharp and ready to go immediately, which, yeah, I mean, there's some shorthand there.
That's video game logic.
Yeah. A lot of the swords that they made in this movie were just made off of, I think it was, I'm not a metallurgist or anything like that, so forgive me if I'm using the wrong term, but it was just like pressed stainless steel plates that they just cut into the shape of swords. So like for a lot of the production swords, a lot of the sword fights you see between people back in the background and in the mid area, those are done with swords that would never be on a battlefield. They were much too heavy. They were much too brittle. If they were actually hitting things, they would have broken and bent, or however it works. I don't fucking know. But these two swords were made specifically, and they were made at a cost of over $10,000 each. And we're talking in the early 80s, a $10,000 sword, that's quite a bit of value. But even then, they were a little bit too heavy to wield in combat too, so they had to have like a backup kind of cheap version of those swords so that Arnold and the other actors could actually wield them in a way that looks slow and muddy and stuff. So yeah, I will say one of my favorite things about this movie, and it starts with the very first scene. Obviously, we talked about the narration into that drum beat for the whatever the name of the song is, Anvil of Doom or something, I forget, but it's fucking classic Conan. But that song doesn't get me pumped as much anymore. It's kind of like just Conan's theme song. I don't hear the Superman theme song and Try to Fly. That kind, it's the theme songs themselves kind of just represent the characters. The scene where we have the Thulsa Doom's army invading the village. Yeah. That is one of the best fucking ways to start a movie. It is done without any words. There's no narration over it. Well, there's a little bit at the end, but not much at the beginning. You just kind of got to piece together what's going on. It's not like it's complicated or anything, but the music is perfectly in time with it. The composer, Basil Palladouris, I think is how you say his name. Pardon me if it's not, but he used a special type of technology that was supposed to help him time up the music properly with what was going on screen, and there were all these last-minute edits where he had to take the edits and take them back to the sound booth and redo the music to make sure that it timed up well. And this scene, the opening scene with the battle, is a great example of that because the music is so well timed with everything else. When you see the single scout and that's it, you're hearing like smaller woodwinds, like clarinets and maybe some strings and stuff. But then as soon as you see the horses on screen, you're hearing that percussion in the background, and it sounds like a horse riding. The way the drum beat is it kind of bobs up and down as you're going. And even so much as like when two people clash, you'll hear, the huge cymbal and the timpani in the background. It was epic. It was designed to be epic, and I think for the most part, it landed.
I have here in the good column the sassy fucking look James Earl Jones gives right before he chops Conan's dad's head off. He looks back.
It is kind of like Girl Please, right?
Yes, 100%. It's like, oh my God, I can't believe you're wearing that. And then spins and chops his dad's head off.
Yeah. I mean, we're still in the good, but am I the only one that cringes a little bit when you see somebody like James Earl Jones wearing blue contacts? I don't know. It feels like whitewashing from somebody, and I don't know who it is. But what is wrong with a black man's eyes? What's wrong with his eyes?
It's just to give that striking gaze, I believe. I think that's all. But
see, that's what I'm saying, and that implies that a person can't have a striking gaze with brown eyes. And I don't know if you ever fell in love with a brown-eyed girl or a brown-eyed person, but it's their eyes can be just as, you know what I'm saying? It feels very Western culture centric to take a well-known actor and put him in weird contacts,
If you had two pools of water and one was brown and one was blue, which pool are you jumping in?
Oh my God, that has got to be one of the most racist arguments I've ever.
No, absolutely I'm
First of
not.
all, brown water can be totally just full of tannins.
See, there you go. I mean, brown. Hey, you know what? I'm drinking a cup of brown water right now. We call it coffee. That is very. I would rather look at a bowl of a cup of coffee than a cup of water.
A coffee bowl? Yes, a coffee bowl. Bring 2, please.
I'm going to back up and say that to me, it always reads as they're trying to make their eyes look otherworldly, like dead eyes.
Yeah, that's how I always read that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I get it, but you see what I'm saying? That it feels like why bother? He's a beautiful enough man, and he's well known enough that you don't need to do that. Like even just throwing long straight hair on him, that's enough. He already looks a little different than normal.
I mean, he's well known now. Was he that well known then?
I think so, because I mean, we were watching movies with him in the '60s where he was kind of a smaller actor, but I would think by the early '80s he's because they tried to get Conan. Okay, when they were trying to make Conan, how they got Max von Sydow, the guy that plays Osric the King. And a couple other people. I think even part of how they were trying to get Arnold on board was they signed James Earl Jones first because he was a known property and everybody was like, ooh, I get a chance to work with James Earl Jones. So yeah, I guess that kind of proves that he was still a big name at that time.
Okay.
And that's why I'm like, then why do you need to, and it's the combo of the blue eyes and the straight hair that I'm like, why are you trying to...
The straight hair would definitely have been...
make him whitish?
The straight hair is definitely a Roman thing. Like that is... Hairpieces were definitely Roman culture.
It just, you know what I'm saying? Like any one of these things by itself is fine, but the combo, I'm like, it feels like somebody was like, oh, he's beautiful, but can we make him more white?
I mean, it is the 80s. It's very probable.
In the 80s, 90s today, like nowadays we understand a little bit more about the inherent racism in our culture, and it's kind of like a person being raised, even if they mean well, they probably might hold some racist beliefs, some bigoted beliefs without realizing it. But in the 80s, I don't think they were really digging that deep on a personal level in therapy and stuff like that. Like, I don't know how far the social sciences, because a lot of these theories, if I remember from my time in school, were like late 90s, early 2000s, that kind of stuff. So I'm not trying to judge anybody involved with the production and calling the Conan production racist, but this is just one of those times where I'm like, looking at it from the lens of today, I'm like, you didn't need to give him stark blue eyes and straight black hair. That's too much. He could have had his normal
actually,
hair,
what would have been
normal
cool
eyes.
Is if they were going to do context at all, make them more like Snake Eyes right from the beginning.
Yeah, that would have made more sense.
Yeah.
But just blue eyes, like, and even when he turns into a snake, his eyes aren't blue snake; they're like green snake. So why doesn't he have just green eyes from the? It didn't seem to make much sense other than make him pretty by Western standards.
Right.
You mentioned Max von Sydow. I just want to point out that he was in this a defining fantasy feature of its time, and decades later is in Game of Thrones, a defining fantasy feature of its time. Good on Max. You know, it's kind of.
So what you're saying is Max is a defining fantasy character.
Hey, he showed up in Star Wars too. He gets around, you know.
There's the Star Wars reference.
He's got that voice where it sounds old and ancient, but slightly exotic at the same time,
and powerful, and kingly, and
vulnerable when he needs to be. I guess that's just the sign of an actor with good range. But yeah, that's definitely one of my goods. Is the Osric's "There Comes a Time, Thief," when the jewels lose their glitter and the gold loses its luster, and the only thing that matters is the father's love for his daughter. He's in that little bit of time, he becomes such a nuanced character to me.
The turning of Conan on the wheel of pain, turning the wheel to show the passage of time is such a great sort of little narrative element, you know, just day in, day out, churning this wheel, and we see his child legs grow into big beefy Arnold legs from pushing that fucking wheel around, like, and
his head's down. And it's one of those where, like, I love the way this movie doesn't tell you what's going on, because you're kind of seeing it from a slave's perspective. Get on the wheel, push. Why am I pushing this wheel? It doesn't matter. Shut up and push.
Right,
Where
for
am
10,
I? Doesn't
10
matter.
years straight, something like that.
You don't need to know fucking anything, and I appreciate that they do it from that perspective.
I also have in my good column just written Arnold noises. If you're a big fan of Arnold noises, there's a lot for you in this movie.
Him grunting. All the grunts, all the cries in pain. He's even his chuckles and his laughs when he like punches the camel and such. Like, I'm sorry, but that is him drunk punching the camel. That is definitely in my good list. This is horrible, but.
He had to fight in his career to be allowed to speak his own lines. Is this one of the first movies where he spoke? Because his voice was previously dubbed in that, Hercules in New York film?
Hercules. Yeah. I love that movie. Hi, can you tell me how to get downtown?
Yeah, right. It's fucking Arnold. It's like, that's not correct. That's not how that's supposed to sound.
He had a dialect coach on the set all the times. And anytime he had spoken lines before they would film that scene, they would break for a few minutes and let him work with the dialect coach to make sure. It was one of those where Arnold himself felt very comfortable, and he was basically saying, like, listen, I know what I'm doing, it's fine. And then they would get him on front of the camera, and they'd be like, I get that you know what you're saying, but we don't know what you're saying.
Right.
So they would force him to learn certain words a little bit better, especially for his big speeches, like his big prayer at the end to Crumb. They multiple hours they broke right beforehand just to prepare him for that speech, and they had to have multiple takes of that speech where they would cut, bring the dialect coach in, talk to him about a line, and have him re-deliver that line. That's why you see a lot of it's not a one take cut. It's many takes, and and that's why. I mean, and good for him. And they kind of balance that too, because one of the things I have in the pro column is that there are large portions of this movie where there are no spoken lines. Like once you have the opening narration and Conan's dad talks, then you have a little blurb of a narration, but other than that, you have like a 20-minute segment where Conan gets his town raided, his mom and dad get butchered in front of him, he gets sold into slavery, and he grows into a man, all of which is largely done without any spoken lines. A little bit of narration, but nobody on the in front of you is talking.
Just Arnold sounds.
Continuing on past that, he they make him a slave warrior or whatever. There's not much dialogue during all that shit either. It's probably like
you just get the grunts.
A good 30
It's really
minutes.
when he gets to the witch.
Yeah,
where he starts talking.
That's exactly
where the dialogue really picks up.
He's looking for two snakes. Yeah.
I have the what is best in life declaration in my good column, because that's just such a ingrained in my mind like badass warrior speech. What is best in life? To see your what is it? To see your enemies.
It is, and I quote:
to crush
your enemies, see them driven before you, and to hear the lamentation of your women.
Yeah.
That is the reason why I have that quote so ingrained in my memory. Is back in the day there was a little game called Baldur's Gate. Baldur's Gate 1, not 2 or 3 or 7 or whatever. It's just 1. And I was in a group of friends where we had like 4 of us living in the same house. It was total flop house. It was great. We had a great time. But we would mod these games, and as far as modding went back in the day. And all it did was basically we put in the picture of Conan as our character. We put in all the spoken lines from the movies that we could cut out of the movie, and we put that in as his spoken lines. And anytime he would enter into combat, we would have him start with "crush your enemies." So, and then we gave him a sword, which made him rage. Anytime anybody would make any aggression towards him, he would start killing, and it was just random when he would stop killing, and we would lose all control of the character. So he would be in a conversation with somebody, and somebody would say something he didn't like, and then all of a sudden you would hear "crush your enemies," and he would start just killing everybody in the town. And the 4 of us that would watch this game would just bowl over in laughter, watching Conan walk his way through the whole town. And then you'd think, "Oh, he's done. Oh, he's done." He'd stop for a second, and then all of a sudden you hear "crush your enemies." They're like, "Oh God, there he goes again. There he goes again."
That's great. That's wonderful.
Come on, kill me! I'm here. It was so much fun, and I gained my my love of Conan and how I learned how to speak like Conan from that game.
You got any more good for us?
I got
Jamie?
plenty more good.
No, not you,
Jamie.
I do. I have the snake arrows. Those were cool.
Yeah, that's a cool concept, and it bent my mind as a young man going, oh.
Like it's gross the way when he pulls it out and it's like a limp, like actual snake. Like fuck that, I don't want that in my body.
Just got a little bit of blood on it. Like yeah.
And the wardrobes were very accurate. I would say accurate in detail.
Speaking of wardrobes, I love. Well, I have a question first before I say my next piece. But did he basically just like earn his freedom from the fighting? Because that guy just kind of lets him go one day. I didn't really get that there was a specific reason other than maybe like, well, this guy has earned his freedom by fighting or something. What?
Nobody
happens?
knows.
Yeah.
Nobody knows. And that the narrator says that. He goes, my lord never knew why he was given freedom that day. Maybe for guilt, maybe for, who knows?
Yeah.
Maybe because he was drunk. Who knows? But one day, all of a sudden, his lord was just like, go on, get out of here. Kicked him out of the camp,
Yeah. I mean, I took it as maybe that guy felt that he earned his freedom by... I'm sure he made him money being his fighting slave and whatnot, you know what I mean? And being so good at it, he's like, go on, get the hell out of here. But the scene where he's being chased by that pack of dogs and then he gets the sword and comes out to confront them and then it just cuts to him covered in furs. I think that's awesome.
Yeah.
The furs that don't match the dogs.
Yeah, he goes out.
I mean,
he goes out into the desert and then like nothing but scraps and fights some dogs and it cuts and he comes back covered in furs. He's making a name for himself. He's doing good.
You gotta love it when a story is told just in a cut like that. Like nobody had to tell you that he just slaughtered all the dogs and he's been slaughtering dogs, making his way over the wasteland, just killing any roving pack of dogs that come his way. One of my good is the Foley. A lot of times in this movie is great. Like when he's breaking arms, that's some of the most impressive. Like I don't know if they got a rack of ribs and were like breaking it under the mic or something, but it sounded like real fucking muscle and bones breaking in some ways. But I will admit that in my bad column, some of the Foley is really bad because it's total 80s, like the classic 80s punch noise. And it's a little bit, it's so cheesy. It's like it's kind of like watching a James Bond movie from the 80s or the 70s and hearing the every time he shoots and I'm like, that's not what guns sound like. But
the only place that my brain allows that to not be cheesy is Indiana Jones, the fist hitting the face noise. Like I'm here for it because that's intentionally pulpy and like you understand that, so it works for that. But when they use that in an action movie that's maybe you're supposed to be taking a little more seriously. Is this not supposed
to be intentionally pulpy?
Well, I guess this is.
I mean, Conan kind of is, but
yeah.
I will say that I'm agreeing with Jamie that this was not, even though this was pulled from a pulp material, they tried to put it into serious territory. And that's really one of the big goods for me. One of the most amazing things about this movie is they did a fantasy story and they did it seriously. They took it seriously. The music was serious. The acting was serious. Everything. It was dark. It was gritty. There was boobs. There was decapitation. There was swearing. There was drug use and punching of animals. And like, it was not... There were some funny moments, but it was not made to be pulpy. And that's why some of those Foley noises kind of pull me out. But overall, for a kid in the 80s, we didn't have much to pick from. I've always said that, like, part of the reason why Star Wars is so popular is because we didn't have anything else to fucking watch in the 80s. Nothing that was even remotely close to the caliber of Star Wars, that's for sure. But
yeah, well, that's not true. Star Wars is successful on its own merits. Thank you very much.
I don't know. I firmly believe that if a Star Wars type IP came out in 2010, let's say, I think it would have been lost in the wash. It's no different than like Firefly or Farscape or something like that. Like it would have been one of the many sci-fi franchises that was fun, and that's it. And
Jamie, your dog is making pondering noises.
She's driving me insane.
You don't
It sounded
say.
like she's very seriously considering what I'm saying.
Yeah.
At least she is.
So I've got a ton more good, and I don't want to like talk over y'all, but I figure I'll let somebody else go unless you're all are done, and then I'll just start rattling down my goods.
Here's what I have.
I'm good.
Here's Jamie's good.
Jamie's good on the goods.
Here's what I have that's in both coming up in a later column, but also in the good column is the the scene where Conan has established himself as a warrior champion, and his gift, I guess, that they throw in the cage with him is a woman, like a topless woman. But
Well, she's not topless when they put her in, but it doesn't take him long.
Right. Well, he gingerly like wraps her in a blanket to feel uncomfortable, and even Jamie was like, "Oh, what a gentleman."
Yeah, you're right. She is naked when she goes there. Yeah.
I'll take it back. That is in my good column. It says he's a gentleman.
Like before he assaults her, though. Let's be plain.
No, that's where I'll mention that when we get to the ugly column. That's, like I said, it has his foot in two columns, but he is gentlemanly. I guess I'll just go ahead and say it, because it's like, he gingerly wraps her up and guides her away from the prying eyes.
Onlookers.
But it's still heavily implied that he goes on to just have his way with her after doing that.
He smiles at her while he does it and everything. Like he's got a creepy smile.
Like instantly. Not even like 2 minutes later. Like instantly.
He's like, "Don't worry, you're safe." JK
from them.
Right.
We're not trying to make light of assault. I mean, we recognize that was very questionable. Even as a child, I was like, I don't like this. The teenage boy in me was like, oh wow, boobies. But other than that, like, this is a little bit. It's not how you're supposed to enjoy that kind of thing. And it's funny to me how many points we have in the good column that feel like they have legs that stretch into the bad or the ugly.
I have a couple. Yeah.
Yeah. Watching this in 1080p was really nice. Some of the scenery that because I've watched this movie so many times, sometimes I'll just put it on in the background. So I'm not as actively watching it as I may have done years ago. But actively watching it for this, some of those scenes were absolutely breathtaking. And in 1080p, they look so nice. Dirty hands and fingers, I thought was a nice touch, that every time we see a character's hands, generally, they have dirty fingernails, they have mud caked on their hands. This is a dirty, dirty world. This world of Conan is not clean, and they didn't try to clean people up. And I know a lot of properties would have kept him very prim and proper. Hell, even Lady Hawk and movies like that, they Willow, they make everybody look as long as you're not supposed to be dirty in this scene, then you're 100% clean, kind of thing. Like, and this movie didn't do that. This movie kept you fucking dirty.
You heard it here first, folks. This movie keeps you dirty.
Dirty.
It does, especially if you.
It does.
If you really get into certain scenes, and there's something a little bit wrong with you. The Temple of Set was created for this movie. They spent, was it $200,000 or something like that on the Temple of Set. That is the big, huge temple with all the steps that go up, that they have all their things happening. Because they had to change filming locations. They wanted to film at one place. They couldn't do it there. They had to come to a different place in Spain. So they built the best they could over it. I think the landscape looks absolutely perfect for what they were going for. It has plenty of hills and wasteland. Yeah, the vistas are good. We joke about how the vistas are such a cliche and a trope of a lot of these movies, but this is like the Psycho of those genres. This is one of those prototypes that we saw all those other ones from. So I don't really mind the vistas. It's fine, but maybe that might fit into the bad column, that it does drag at a couple places. I'm sure, to somebody that's not appreciating the music and the scenery as much as I am.
Honestly, to me, not much. The movie, when it was over, I was like, that was maybe slightly longer than I expected, but I didn't feel that until it was over.
I felt it.
Yeah, I know.
That's what I'm imagining. I'm imagining somebody that doesn't really get into medieval fantasy, especially doesn't get into that.
Hold up.
No.
Yeah,
Hold on. I'm not talking about you. I'm talking about, imagine somebody sitting down that doesn't get into medieval fantasy, and they watch this movie. Those scenes have got to be boring as fuck for them, whereas they're interesting to me. If there was somebody watching this movie that wasn't into Arnold movies, or wasn't there, you know what I'm saying? If there's somebody that walks into this, that there's something that they're already kind of like not really that big into, then you're not gonna, it's kind of like Lord of the Rings. If you're like, I don't really give a shit about movies with elves, well, you're gonna have a hard time, because there are a lot of elves, and we spend a lot of time just looking at elves.
Bad day,
honey. You've got a big storm coming.
Yeah, we spend a good 5 minutes just looking at an elf smiling at you while choirs sing to you, like...
Well, speaking of the Temple of... Is it Set? Is that what it is?
Temple of Set is what they call it, yes.
When Conan goes there to infiltrate, and he basically, like... it's implied that he's seducing like a gay priest of Set, I think is what's happening there, right? Did you guys get that?
Yeah.
That sort of vibe? Well, when he takes his disguise and he's walking around, he's like a fucking idiot, like waving at everyone and saying hello and like, yes, lovely cult we have here. Like he doesn't say that, but it's like, that's the implication. And like, he's got his medallion and he's like, look, see, I'm supposed to be here. I have this medallion. And that guy takes it and he like starts to reach for it, kind of like oh, you're keeping that? Okay. And then like walks off. I was laughing out loud. It's so funny to me. I don't know if that belongs in the bad column, but it brought me joy, so it's in my good column because it put a huge smile on my face.
I think that's totally a good, because first off, it brought you joy, and that which brings you joy you should keep in your life. But secondly, like, you could watch that and go, God damn, this guy is a fucking moron. He's gonna get caught.
Yes.
And he does.
Yeah.
Everybody looks at him like you are sticking out like a sore thumb.
It's
You make
instant.
no
they just
sense
pull
here.
him out of the crowd. Like that's the guy right there. It's like
The whole point of their cult is to embrace doom. And he's like, hello, how are you? Nice to see you. You have nice robes. Look at my flowers. We don't talk, buddy. You notice we have 10,000 people here and you're the only one talking? Why don't you shut up? The effects were done by Madame Tussaud. A lot of they made a few figures, I guess you could say. And some of the figures were used in the scene where Thulsa Doom transforms into a dragon or a snake.
That makes sense.
I know that a lot of people regard this scene as, oh my God, this is groundbreaking, blah, 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 blah. But as a child, as an adult, the entire way, I don't like it. It's not one of my favorites, but that's more in the bad column. We'll talk about that in a minute.
the giant animatronic snake is really good looking though. That thing looks pretty gnarly.
That was and that was I forget how much the cost was, but we're talking like $50,000 plus or whatever I think it was to manage that, because that was real animatronic. They decided early on they weren't going to use any magical effects or anything like that, aside from one moment where the witch is being ousted out of her cabin and they put in those little bit of wisps, and that was done by Industrial Light and Magic under the scene. Like they were working under George Lucas himself at that point too. So George Lucas is kind of in some small way involved with this movie.
Yep. Well, that's what makes it great.
More
Obviously.
Star Wars.
I was genuinely surprised because I hadn't watched this movie in a while at how, I don't know, to me, I felt like Conan's actual romance with his girlfriend, who did they say her name in the movie?
Valyria. They say her name is several times. It's Valyria.
The romance was actually genuinely sweet to me. Like, he seemed to really love her, and it's kind of unexpected from, Conan the Barbarian. That's, it's not what you think you're getting, but he seemed to have a genuine care for her, and my last few good notes are tied up to that. When she dies, the symbolism of the stormy ocean, showing like the turmoil of Conan.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's good. That's fun. He does his like sword ballet is what I wrote. He's gonna dance away the bad feelings with his sword.
Tom would have a field day with him.
Right. Lots of cunts. The line that his buddy gives though, when they say, "Why are you crying?" and he says,
He is Conan, Sumerian. He won't cry. So I cry for him.
Yeah,
that's like a bro. That's a bro. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's that.
Yeah.
These are the kind of movies that taught me some of the deeper nuance of being a good friend to somebody. That you might have friends that are going through rough times and they're not allowing themselves to feel the regret and remorse or sadness or whatever, and try to help them pick up the slack. Whether that means like, so for example, you got somebody that's going through a death in the family. Maybe help them by, you might not have wanted to keep this thing, this photo album of your aunt or whatever. I'm going to hold on to this for you for a minute because you might want this later. It translated into a lot of other ways that behind the scenes you can be a good friend to somebody, knowing that they're not going to allow themselves to feel this feeling right now, but they may want to feel it later or whatever. But then that's also one of the bads kind of to me, because I don't like how Conan, being the sign of ultimate masculinity, well, he just can't cry. Men don't cry. And that reinforces that. And I don't like that. But I do like, I'm with you that Subuntai's friendship is good masculinity. Conan's silence in the case of his pain and suffering is not good masculinity.
Also, it's super fresh when he said, you know what I mean? Give Conan a little time.
Oh, yeah.
He'll work through it.
Who knows? He might have properly processed this a little bit later, and we all have our own timelines. Like, I've gone through grief in my life where the moment that it happened, I was numb, and then, like, 6 months later, all of a sudden, I'm like, ow, what is this happening to me? Oh, right, I never paid attention to that big, huge, bad thing.
You got some more good to fire off? All right, well, fire it off.
Oh my goodness.
Remember, that was just Keith telling us his good. We were getting through his list. Now we haven't even started mine.
Well,
so.
we're 40 minutes in, and I'm out of good.
I know. I'm so happy that everybody had so many good things to say about this movie that it's hard to fit into an hour. I was hoping this would be the case. No, I'm near the end. The few notes I'd like to talk about the Valyria thing real quick. She's a mishmash of a couple different characters from the comics and the books, but she was given a little bit more importance. And I think part of the reason why that romance plays so well, because there's no denying that Arnold I don't think he's ever won an Oscar or anything like that for his acting. He's okay at this point in his career. He's not amazing. He's okay. But Sandra Bergman did an amazing job. And it's ironic because Sandra Bergman did an amazing job in this, and then kind of went on and decided she wanted to do other roles that gave her more challenging things. And this was one of the big highlights of her career. And from some people's point of view, maybe she kind of peaked here a little bit, which is unfortunate because she's wonderful. I think she's wonderful in a lot of other things that she gets a lot of grief for, which maybe we'll talk about at some point. One of the nice things about Sandra Bergman that you might not realize looking at her is she's 6 feet tall, barefoot.
Wow.
A couple other goods. The head plopping down the stairs. I love that sound effect. I don't know how they did it, but the head, when he cuts off the head of Thulsa Doom and throws down the stairs and we hear plop, plop, plop. Every time that happens, I chuckle a little bit, and I'm not laughing at it. I feel like I'm laughing with it. The ending scrawl. How often do you see that in a movie where it's an ending scrawl?
Yeah.
I don't remember any movies that I've seen that have that. Like Star Wars has it at the beginning, but not at the end.
There's movies where it's like where they show all the characters, this freeze frame, and it says like
but that's a little different than just like a black screen or a static screen, and we're scrolling the text from bottom of the screen to top like you would at the top of the movie. It was just a weird kind of. I don't remember ever seeing that before or after. Maybe there is, but I'm not thinking of it. I really appreciate the way that there was a culture mishmash with the outfits and the ornamentation, the architecture. Is it Egyptian? Kinda. Is it Mongolian? Kinda. Are there some Roman influences? Kinda. Or it feels like there's about 10 different cultures. If I were to ask you, pinpoint on this globe where this adventure is taking place, the only place you can kind of think of is maybe in the Middle East because it's a confluence of all these different places. So I really like that. I think that's the end of my good.
All right. Well, let's head over to Jamie and start talking about the bad, because I'm sure she has some stuff in that column from judging from previous comments. So let's talk about the bad.
The bad, the hair pieces. The hair pieces in this were awful. They didn't even look like they were. Like, I know we're in the barbarian world, and I know that we're not the most well-kept people, but they didn't even look like they had ever been brushed when they came out, except for Thulsa Doon's, which was perfectly coiffed.
They could have just used the actor's natural hair, and it probably would have been fine. Right.
Just had him grow it out a little bit. Even, like, the beards, like, every piece of hair that we saw was really bad. So I had to do that to stay consistent.
I think the beards were real. I think some of the beards were real, but
some of them were horribly bad fake that like stuck out sideways instead of like beards actually grow.
Yeah.
That kind of thing.
Yeah.
So that was the first one because I had to. I also have to talk on the fact that they used German Shepherds as wolves, and they didn't even get German Shepherds that weren't like bicolored German Shepherds. There are solid black German Shepherds. There are sable German Shepherds that look far more wolf-like than the black and tan German Shepherds that they used. Yeah. So they lost the points for using the correct dogs in the beginning by using very obvious German Shepherds as wolves.
So they're at point neutral now for Jamie.
Yeah. No.
right.
On that point.
So you're telling me there's a chance.
And the very first note I have is that they immediately fridge Mama. Like, oh, she's got to die so that Conan can have a story.
Oh, yeah. That's one of my bads is women as story vehicles. I
Yes.
don't like it when movies and films and stories in general treat women just as an inspiration for the male character to do something. That's so fucking annoying, and this movie is guilty of it in a lot of ways. He does it over and over again with this movie.
Yeah, it's actually...
Don't think this movie passes the Bechdel test.
Yeah, no, it does not even kind of pass the Bechdel test. It's not even in my bad column. The actual relationships of all women in this movie are in my ugly column because it's awful.
Yeah, and that's where I kind of come back to. It was made in the 30s. This was made by people that were probably very much misogynist. They were raised in a heavily misogynist culture, and that you can see it in their art, and that sucks. And I'm right there with you. Yep.
And honestly, we have plenty of evidence that through the years that Arnold himself was very much a misogynist. Not saying he still is, but in his young years, definitely was.
I think the social scientist in me kind of comes back to the whole point of like we all are a little bit like even women, even you are, Jamie, a little bit like you're raised in this culture. It's inundated into your psyche in ways that we can't even fully process even as adults. So like part of being a socially aware person is by always analyzing where these things crop up. Just like admitting I'm gonna have racist beliefs. I'm going to have bigoted beliefs in my mind. How do I recognize them? How do I address them when they come out? That's the thing. So like, was Arnold a misogynist in the 80s? Fuck yeah, he was. Is he still a misogynist? Probably in some way. Hopefully he's done some work and he's become better at it. But, and that's the best any of us can hope for, especially white men in Western culture. Like we have to fight a little bit extra to fight those biases because everything centers us in media, well, at least especially in the 80s. So
I have in my bad column when he goes to infiltrate the flower cult, he picks some purple flowers. They're like lilacs or something, and his friend asks him, "Who are the flowers for?" And he's like, "For a girl," and like with a sly smile or whatever, because he's going to save Max von Sydow's daughter. But when he rides up to the place, he has completely different flowers. So why did he even...
Yeah, that's bad continuity right there.
Why did he even grab those? Did he throw them away and trade like, ooh, these are better? It's just...
He gave those to a different girl along the way.
Right. It just struck me as a... Because it's one of those hard cuts where it cuts to him and he's just got different flowers. And it's like, okay, well, who's got some more bad?
Oh, I got more bad. Oh,
jeez. Oh, no. Bring it
First
on.
of all,
it hurts him.
It's interesting that you bring up pacing because to me, the pacing was awful. This movie was way longer than it needed to be. There were long stretches where I was bored and waiting for it to move on so we could get this over with. So,
a dagger in his
interesting.
heart.
I have no defense to that. I brought it up myself. I recognize that this movie could have been an hour and a half. It didn't need to be 2 hours and 10 minutes or whatever it is.
I completely disagree with Keith about the love story. I think every relationship in this movie is completely unearned.
I thought he was sweet with his
He
lady.
runs into somebody and all of a sudden they're friends, and he runs into somebody and all of a sudden they're in love, and he runs into somebody and all of a sudden they're friends. Like,
he's just that
there's
kind of a guy,
nothing.
Jamie.
They do have interactions, and the point is that like their interaction
Very
is
minimal.
minor. Yeah, their interaction is minimal, but they're brought together through the fates that they are both on the same side right this moment, and then they see in dealing with them in this moment that the person's like honorable, and they're, you know what I'm saying? Like when Subotai is chained up,
she's not buying it, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's fine. If somebody is convinced that they're not going to hear your argument, that happens. But
No, I'm just saying that, come on, she basically falls into bed with him immediately, which I get that when you're in a stressful situation.
Okay, maybe you didn't see the time lapse.
How about him and the witch?
Okay, the witch was there specifically because she wanted to take his she was a witch. She was trying to prey on him.
Seed.
Yeah, it was like a siren. That would be like you watching the story of Ulysses or Homer or something like that and going, so why are those women just sitting on the rock? That's awfully convenient. Well, yeah, that's their thing. They sit on the rock and they call men to them, you know, like the sirens and stuff like that. Like this was a mythical creature that she exists to try to like lure men in to do this. And
even him and Subotai, I feel like it was just not.
Jamie, he gave her the biggest jewel. Okay, what
Yeah.
what do women want?
Yeah.
Like, what more could he have done?
Like, he gave her all the gruel she wants and a big fucking jewel.
Right. Yeah.
For the times that they were in, he was a gentleman, as you said. But yes,
Yes, a gentleman that was not a gentleman.
When I brought up somebody, when I kind of like hinted at this earlier, but I was curious to hear what it's like, because like it's easy for me to watch this movie, and I know that Conan and Valeria have a lot of love for each other as the movie goes on, so it's easy for me to fall into that storyline because I'm expecting it. I was deeply curious how somebody that doesn't, and especially somebody like Jamie that you have from time to time enjoyed romantic comedies and those kind of movies, I'm sure. So like, and so somebody that does like love stories, did this land for you? And what I'm hearing is no. So like that's totally valid. Totally get it.
I think it's funny that me, the guy, I'm like, oh, the romance was actually kind of sweet, and Jamie's like, nope.
Yeah. And that just shows you, like, this media was made for you. It wasn't made for her.
Right. I 100% see why an adolescent and teenage and young adult male would love this movie. I can 100% understand why it would appeal to them. And that's the audience it was striving for, so it did a great job there.
Especially like a young man, because his story is about being young but being raised into this big huge muscle bound fighter that he can and he wins the woman, and
especially a young outsider male.
Yep.
So like like a nerd might watch this movie and feel particularly drawn to it.
What are you trying to say, Jamie?
Give us another bad. Let's hear the bad.
I have one. This is my last bad one, but it was I called them the pallbearers, but they're the guys carrying the big cannibal soup pot. The way they moved, it looked like they were dancing. They were like doing little like shuffle and side to side on with their hips and like motion as they're bringing that bowl of like head and hand green soup or whatever.
Well, it's hard to carry a giant pot of head and hands. They slosh around.
Yeah,
it's
but
very
the
weight distribution.
They were all in sync and they're sashaying as they go. It just looked like they were having a great time.
Yeah. And if I read the fact behind the scene thing, that's kind of cool the way they did it. They had a couple of figures that they had made, the Madame Tussauds special effects people. They made a couple of like full-bodied figures that they used in some combat scenes, and during the combat scenes they got all fucked up because they got chopped up or thrown from a cliff or whatever, that kind of shit. And then they turned them into soup afterwards, and they've used all of their parts over and over again that way. And I'm like, oh, that's like
use every part of the buffalo.
Tatanka.
I don't know if that's good or bad, but I'm definitely not hungry after watching it.
It's sustainable movie making.
I will say that one of the bads that I don't even have written down, but I feel like it's worth mentioning, is that for the animal rights groups watching this, consider this movie questionable at best.
That's one of my ugly notes. So if we want to jump into the ugly, the animal treatment in this.
Oh, we're not done with bad yet, but that's definitely, I guess that should have been an ugly, but I'm right there. You can tell that the animals were not taken care of in this.
No, one of my bads is the fake blood. Like, the fake blood doesn't even look like blood. It's very almost red paint. Sometimes
it is real blood. It is actual pig's blood is what they're using.
Really?
That was real actual blood that they used in most of those scenes. What they would do is they would get pig's blood and they would put it in a bladder and put it underneath the person's armor, and then when somebody would hit the other person, it would splash that bladder open.
Little behind the scenes movie making tidbit, that's called a squib.
And I'm right there with you that some of those didn't work too well. Like, there are times where like Conan slashes somebody in the chest and a bunch of blood goes flying out around his armpits, and I'm like, how does what? Is that how the human body works? Does water just spray out of your armpits and your elbows?
I also wonder if they didn't punch up the red color in post, because it seemed unrealistically red.
It worked for me, and if you take it with the sort of anime mentality, because there's like lots of gushing blood in that fight at the end, and I was into it.
Yeah,
I was a little surprised.
I think this movie would have worked a lot better had they tried to go for the camp and the and
a
the
little
pulp
more,
of it.
push it a little more.
Yeah, like really lean into it.
Let me tell you about Conan the Destroyer. I was even thinking early on that I could see this happening, that Keith and I like Conan the Barbarian more, because it's kind of widely known that Conan the Destroyer loses a lot of what Conan the Barbarian had going for it. And I would imagine to some people, Conan the Destroyer is much more palatable because it's not as long. They don't have as many long pauses. There's more jokes. It's a little bit lighthearted. So you might fucking love Conan the Destroyer. Who knows? Maybe I will too.
Because like I said, I think this movie really would have benefited from leaning into the camp and the pulp. I think it would have been very helpful for it.
Then you might like the next movie in our two-part series. A couple other small bads that I have. Women are treated very, very, very poorly in this entire script from start to finish, even with Valeria being the second strongest warrior. That goes to show you the most idealized woman in the world doesn't really talk much, is a prize for our hero, and is, no matter how good she is, she's never as strong as he is. I
will say, in slight defense of that, only the fact that it is very historically accurate.
Yeah, it's a product of its time, and I enjoy watching it from that perspective too.
I'm not even talking the 80s. I'm talking literally historically accurate, the way women would have been treated during that time.
Well, therein lies the problem. What time is that?
It basically says that it takes place during the Roman conquest of the Picts and the Celts.
It says, before the times when the oceans drank Atlantis and the rise of the sons of Arius.
Yeah, so then.
But he's part of a Pictish cult.
I mean, that's
basically
that's what you're picking up on. Yes. You know what I'm saying? I think the question that I was posing a question that's kind of a trick question because I don't think it's set in any one particular time. It's kind of set in ancient days, quote unquote.
Right.
So like, yeah, that's the irony. Is anybody that would look at it and go, "Oh, well, the time that this was set in, okay, what year was that?" You know,
it's set in the days of high adventure. Okay?
There you go. Those are the days right after the days of yore, or before the days of yore.
Yes,
before the days of yore.
It's Pre-Yore, post days of high adventure. Gotcha.
Well,
as long as
in days of high adventure.
It is in the days of
high it is in the days of high adventure.
Pre-Yore, pre-Atlantis being sunk, in the days of high adventure. Post-dinosaurs, maybe?
Post-Atlantis, post-Sons of Arius, pre-Yore.
In the days of high adventure.
I'm glad.
Okay, I'm done. I can't do it anymore. My only ugly is the snake effect Thulsa Doom, and there are 2 points to this. One, I don't like the snake effect. I don't fucking like it.
And so we're talking about the ugly now?
Or unless you had bad.
Nope, I just wanted to clearly break that we're talking about the ugly.
So yes, the snake effect, Thulsa Doom. Did not like it for 2 reasons. One, it looks fucking horrible the way they do it. I love that everybody is fucking so cheesed about this amazing special effect. I'm like, you didn't even need to do that. I'd rather see it in camera effect where we just fade between 2 different faces. That would have been better for me.
Yeah, it's not even in camera. It's like his face stretches 3 times and then poof, he's a snake on the next cut. It's terrible.
Yeah, so why did we need that in the middle, especially for the cost and the amount of time that they dedicate to it, where we just hear the soundtrack for a good 45 seconds while we're looking at Thulsa Doom's face while it slightly bulges in a couple places.
Yeah.
But there's also the thing of like, as much as they did the face to look like James Earl Jones, how did they fucking miss the skin tone?
Yeah.
Like, his skin tone is different. I think it looks lighter or something. I forget which direction it went in, but it was just a completely different skin tone. And I'm like, motherfucker, you can't do that in post. You can't get up there and put a little makeup. It's just a fucking doll. Put some darker makeup on it or something. I don't know.
Right.
So it felt kind of lazy, ironically.
The first note in my ugly column is James Earl Jones's berries and cream haircut.
Berries and cream.
Once again, he's rocking the Betty Page, and it looks awkward on him. Yeah, it looks so strange on him.
The mid-level bangs. He's got the goth girl dream haircut from the 90s.
He does.
That's what it was. All the goth girls in the 90s were emulating James Earl Jones from Conan the Barbarian. It's solved now.
Yeah,
now we know.
That's totally what it was.
Yeah, why Winona Ryder, she was trying to look like James Earl Jones.
It's 1 foot in the good column and 1 foot stretching all the way over the bad into the ugly column is that, it's Conan is a gentleman who proceeds to follow through with the assault of his prize woman that he's offered. So just want to note that did make it into my ugly column.
Yeah.
And as I said before, the animal treatment. There's a part where they're going through the town and someone's holding a pig in a way that can't be comfortable, and they're like swinging chickens around by the legs. And I was just like, "Come on, man, really?" It's probably one of the biggest downers of the movie. Like, I had to like push it out of my mind and say, different time, because I love animals. I don't want to see them mistreated, and it looks like they were probably not comfortable on this set.
And it's very easily, even then, it was easy to make rubber versions of those animals for that.
Right.
So to use the real thing is kind of stupid.
And you could pantomime mistreating them the same way you do with human actors. What if you treated living creatures like other living creatures that have pain
Oh my God.
Evolutionary.
There are ways, like, for example, when he punches the camel, he doesn't actually punch the camel. He just kind of does the whole fake punch where his fist is right next to the camel's face. It's not that hard. We've been doing pantomime combat acting on stages and in films for hundreds of years now. Why did we have to pause it for this?
Right.
For authenticity? In your movie has witches and wizards and snake people? You want authenticity in your fucking elf movie with snakes and wizards? Shut up. Yeah, we have to keep the authenticity when it means barbarizing, being, you know what I'm saying.
Right.
All right, who's got more ugly? Because our special guest caller is on the line. And
My ugly, I kind of already brought it up, but the way that the women are treated in this movie as a whole, they are 100% just plot devices. They have no agency. They have no dimension. Really, nobody in this movie has any dimension. Every character is one-dimensional. Nobody grows.
Valeria is saved by the wonderful performance of Sandra Bergman, and also the writing helps her a little bit with the keep calling back to "You want to live forever," and then we see her at the end. Crumb answers his prayer by bringing Valeria back to block one blow. That's it. That's all you get is one block.
You mean when her Force Ghost shows up and saves the day?
Yeah. Wait, George Lucas was involved with this movie. He probably was like, hey, Dino De Laurentiis, I got a little idea for you. It reminds me of the Vietnam War. Let me tell you about it.
But again, just as a plot device.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Overall, her treatment is poor, but the only reason that it gets pulled into slightly acceptable territory, for me at least, is because of Sandra Bergman, largely. She does a great job with the limited shitty material that she's given. So. You got any other uglies, Keith?
Yep, I'm fresh out of ugly.
I'm out of ugly. I only had the one note, so my ugly was a short list.
Well, I guess it's time to check in with our patient caller, who we have on the line.
So glad that he's been so patient.
Yeah, goes by the name of Alan.
I've been listening to this entire broadcast, and I'd like to say that the statement that women were mistreated is completely false. We treated women with total respect. You notice at one point when I'm picking her up by her butt, I don't put my finger directly inside of her. I lifted her up and I told her that she had nice titties. And this is how you tell a woman.
That is very, that's so gentlemanly of you, Alan. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. I would say this is my friend. He was involved in the production of this movie. He's a really nice guy. From what I hear, he's not misogynistic at all. He's kind and forgiving and really very handsome.
I wanted to ask where you were getting your information. So you were friends with someone on the production of the film, is what you're saying?
Yes, I was just friends with somebody. I was walking through the town and I saw them making the movie, and I decided to just sit and watch, and I became the friends, and it was good times. And no animals were ever harmed. Even when they pick up the chicken, I saw the chicken sign a consent form, and he said it was totally fine. He's actually really enjoyed his work on the movie.
I wonder if Gonzo's ever had chickens sign any consent forms.
Oh, good Lord.
You would think it are NDAs.
Yeah, right.
I think that's more Gonzo style, have the chicken sign an NDA.
Well, Kelly, this was your movie, and you're the biggest fan. Do you have any questions for, he actually, I said Alan, he's said he likes to be, referred to as Al. I believe his name is Alan.
I prefer you speak to me in this way. This is a pseudonym. This is not my real name, but I don't want you to give any more information other than this movie was a pleasure to watch. They were just so good at making the movies, and they're so talented and so wonderful, and I'm just very happy to be able to watch this. And I think all of the horrible things that you're saying about it I'm sorry, I'm getting a little angry because it feels very unfair. It feels very unfair that you're saying these things about such a good movie. And this Jamie, whoever you are, all I have to say to you is, Jamie, please, enjoy the movie. Stop complaining. Don't be a pussy. Enjoy the Barbarian.
It's okay, Alan. You're fine. I understand that.
But that was a heated exchange. But as I was saying, Kelly, this is your movie, your pick. Do you have any questions for Mr. B-Back?
Well, this is such an honor, honestly, to speak to you, Alan. Alan, was it?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you for coming on. It's not very often we have a friend of a friend of a friend of a star. So thank you for joining us. But if you were to say, so you were to pick this entire movie, and we have these 3 questions that we ask about the Muppets and the popcorn bucket and who your MVP was. So I'm going to ask you, if the whole movie was made out of Muppets, who would you make as the only human actor?
Oh, this one's easy. Obviously, it's got to be Conan.
I agree with that.
You have Conan beat the absolute shit out of every single one of those goddamn Muppets, those chicken fuckers. You notice we don't fuck any chickens in our movies, so, I mean, in their movies, sorry. But yes, it has to remain Conan, and same as the end, the most valuable person in the entire production has got to be Conan. You look at him, without him, the movie doesn't make any sense. It's just looking at someone, just nobody running around. You're just watching dogs, and you're watching camels fall down, and women put themselves on the ground for no reason. And Conan, he brings a sword, and he slashes people.
I have to agree with you on the Muppet thing. I think if you do the Muppets of this Conan movie, Conan absolutely has to be the human surrounded by Muppets. That's the only way that works for me.
I so want to see a Conan Muppet.
Yeah, that would be fun
the
too.
other way around, where Conan is the only Muppet, that would be wonderful.
If you're looking for an actor to do the voice, you just give me a call.
Well, there is an actor, I'm sure Arnold Schwarzenegger himself would be more than happy to reprise his role, especially in voice-only form now that he's, aged out of being a big action star.
I'm not sure that the movie could afford him. He's very expensive nowadays.
You don't take any umbrage at me saying that Arnold Schwarzenegger has aged out of being a big, profitable action star, Al?
That it's just kind of pathetic to watch him try to do stunts at this point.
At this point, I'm used to your little broadcast, your show, completely defaming and debasing the honor of this movie. I don't think that you gave it enough praise. I don't think you understand the symbolism of the sword and his mother. He killed his mother. He killed his father. He took his father's sword. What don't you understand?
What about the popcorn bucket, Al? What would you suggest?
Thulsa Doom's head.
Yeah, I guess that tracks. That's pretty good. I was thinking the cannibal soup pot, but what you said sounds like it would win as well.
Yes.
How about his mother's head?
Ooh.
Listen, Jamie, I'm getting tired of your attitude. I don't appreciate all this defamation. As a matter of fact, I'm done with this bullshit. You better be paying attention when you do the next movie, but for now, I've got to go.
Oh, well, I hope he will be back. He has promised to come back, but that was Alan be back, and
he'll be back.
Yeah, I'm sure he will.
Oh, Jesus Christ, guys. I mean, it's
kind of his thing.
Where do you find these people, Kelly?
I'm very active on the internet. I still use news groups, and it's popular with the boomers.
He seemed a little agitated, but apparently he's a listener, so hopefully he understands that we're just saying it like it is when we talk.
Well,
about
at this point,
movies.
Red Letter Media is stealing our ideas. Arnold Schwarzenegger's very close friend is accusing us of defamation. I mean, what else is there?
Hey, that you must be doing something right if you're shaking the trees like that. That's all I'm gonna say.
Yeah, getting YouTube creators and aging action stars mad at us. That's when you're making an impression on the world. That's when I was a little boy. My mom was like, "I hope he pisses off Arnold Schwarzenegger someday."
Wasn't Arnold? It was his friend.
Oh, right. I'm sorry. Yes, for legal purposes, it is not anyone that even.
It was
yes.
Alan Bebeck.
Yeah, Alan Bebeck. He rushed off before we could finish our MVP, but I'm going to give it to his friend. What Kelly? What was his friend's name? The one who said the line. I cry for him.
Subutai.
That's right.
Subutai, thief and Acha.
I'm going to give Subutai the MVP because specifically for that line and just the way they met. He like became his instant travel buddy. So I'm going to give it to him.
Instant. That's the word.
Yeah. What about you, Jamie?
My MVP is the final title card.
Oh, Jesus.
Wow.
It's a good thing
So you don't
Alan
think
wasn't here.
Anybody
to say
involved
that.
this entire production did a good thing. Wow, I'm so sad. You know, you keep this up, I'm sure that guy is going to call back, and he's not going to be very happy next time. He might have a lawyer with him or something. Who the fuck knows?
He wasn't happy this time.
No, he was very upset with you in particular. I think he was okay with Keith and I, but you know.
What about you, Kelly? Who's your MVP?
Just because of the reasons I gave earlier, I want to give it to Arnold and Conan because, our buddy Alan was right, but the movie doesn't really work without him, and he's such the embodiment of the character. But Sandra Bergman really gave this movie a lot more nuance than it really deserved, probably. And she turned a one-dimensional character into at least a 2.5-dimensional character. Like, I wouldn't go so far as to call her a real fucking person, but at least the emotions behind her eyes looked genuine, you know, so. All right, so the real question now, and I feel like I got a good idea where the wind is blowing, but after everything that's been said or done, did you like the movie? Did you enjoy it? Would you give it a thumbs up? Let's start with you,
You
Jay.
really want to do this? Here. Now? Yes. Okay. Okay. Let's do it!
I hated this movie.
Oh my god, I'm shocked, I tell you, shocked.
Right? I know, it's totally surprising. But this is probably the worst movie that we've watched. You know what it was? It was Total Recall in Barbarian form.
Oh my god, Total Recall is a great movie.
You don't like Total Recall?
What was the one we
Blade
watched
Runner.
with Ryan Gosling?
Blade Runner.
It was Blade Runner in Barbarian form.
Oh, you know, I can actually see that connection
Yeah.
because Blade Runner was very ponderous and very long. So I get you.
And
I get you.
didn't give the female characters any agency or brains or anything. So yeah, it was very similar, but with a different cast and different effects. That's the word.
Yeah, like I can see where you're coming from, and I can see where like it's easy for me to say, well, no, this movie was good for blah 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 reasons, but that's easily discounted because the movie was made for me. It wasn't made for you. So of course, it's like listening to a Taylor Swift album.
I can see where, I can fully see where it would be something that a young male would enjoy. 100%. Keith, what about you?
It's a thumbs up from me. I like this movie. It's a movie from my childhood, and I'm a huge Arnold Schwarzenegger fan. I don't have any excuses. I think it's a good movie, and I like it, and I give it a thumbs up. What about you, Kelly? Did you like this movie?
Did I like the movie that I picked? Yeah, absolutely. Like I like this movie enough where it's worth putting up with watching the other movie in this small series just so that I can see Conan the Barbarian. And I get where, like, even if it's not in my top 5 movies of all time or anything, like on a 1 to 10 scale, it might only get an 8. You know, it's not perfect by any means, and it's so I totally get where it wouldn't be for some people, and that's why that's the perfect kind of movie for movie night and for our podcast, because I get that it's going to be polarizing, and I'm glad that I forced Jamie to watch this movie, so now she knows whether she likes it or not. We had a really good discussion about it and how media transformed over the years and yada, but also, like, you'll get the references. So if one of us says crush your enemies, or, you know, like, how does the wind ever get in here, or y'all sluts, you know, these are lines that I use all the time. And if nobody knows me and they don't know this movie, they're like, what the fuck is wrong? Somebody goes, oh my god, get that guy out of here. I'm like, no, I'm just quoting Conan the Barbarian. I'm actually part gay, don't worry, I'm allowed.
47%?
Yeah, 47% gay. That is statistically correct. We don't break it down to the decimal point. That's enough. That's all you need to know. Beyond that, you have to take me out to dinner first. So, those were our thoughts on Conan the Barbarian. We are going to be coming back next week for Conan the Destroyer for part 2 of this 2-part series of the Conan series that we wish we had more. And no, we're not counting the Jason Momoa stuff. That's a different series. I'm not saying it's not valid, but that's not what we're covering. We're covering the Arnold
I'd have liked it better
Schwarzenegger.
if it was Jason Momoa.
Yeah, and see, like, that movie, I have zero interest in watching, even though Jason Momoa
Never
is cool.
even seen it. I've never bothered to see it.
Yeah.
I don't want to see it. I'm just saying that I might have been more interested with Jason Momoa.
I am just Arnold is such Conan now. Like, the way Conan talks is with Arnold's accent. When I read a Conan novel, he sounds that he's got that Austrian accent with him.
I'm sorry, I just want to isolate that for a second. Arnold is such Conan. Can we get that printed on a t-shirt?
Yes, with exclamation point afterwards. Arnold is such Conan.
Yeah, that's a good one.
And even the point that, like, we call him Conan, and Arnold doesn't call, like, Conan himself does not refer to himself as that. It's Conan. Yeah. But nobody else calls him that. The guy is telling maybe that's why he's so mad. He's telling everybody his name, but nobody's listening to him. What's your name? Conan. Hi, Conan. Conan.
My name is Conan.
Yeah, so next week we're going to come back for that. If you have any comments, questions, or concerns, we've got social media all over the place. Blue Sky is up, Discord is up. We're having discussions on Discord with Adam, Emond, and other friends there. We are on Facebook where some discussions are going on there. Not as much, but hey, what are you going to do? You know, tell your friends about the pod. Support the pod over at ko-fi.com/screenshare. Leave us a review on your podcatcher of your choice. We've been loving seeing all the reviews. 5 stars all around. Who cares if it's on a 10 scale? No. 5 out of 5 stars everywhere I'm looking, and I'm loving seeing it. But don't forget to leave a text review. Because if you leave a text review, we may, and we probably will, just read it on an episode at some point. So
yes, we will read your words, and don't forget to set up your follow and auto download of episodes to help our algorithm. It really means a lot to us.
If you've got a second device, download it again. You don't have to listen to it twice. Just if you've got, a tablet and a phone, download it on both things. Just help us out here. The numbers always help. The algorithm sucks.
Support the pod, or we'll come to your house and we'll die.
No, that's completely not what I'm saying at all. I'm saying, please, I am not going to stalk anyone.
I will come to your house and I will die in your house, and that's going to be a problem.
Support the pod, or we'll have Alan Bebeck call you.
Yeah, you'll get a phone call from Alan.
If we could get him on board for that, I don't know if we could afford him, but we'll see. But for Screen Share and Chill, I'm Kelly.
I'm Keith.
I'm Jamie.
Crush your enemies.
We'll be back. We overdid that joke a little bit, right?
Why do you do this?
Jamie's crying about having to watch more Conan.
I'm holding to you to the fact that the next one's campy, and therefore I will appreciate it more.
Jamie, please, come on.
I thought we hung up. Get out of here, Alan. Get off the line.
I'm going to call the police. You go ahead, call them. Call anybody you want. They can't